Good morning. Good morning from the studio above the clouds. We're going to talk about designing a creative life without burning out and what that looks like today. And it's kind of an unfair conversation because that looks really different for different people. So we're going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it briefly from a very kind of generalized perspective and things that have helped me, because that's kind of all I can talk about, because it is going to be very different person to person what that looks like. um so I'm going to talk about it kind of from my own perspective, and some tips and tricks and some things that might be helpful to you. And then if you want to continue the conversation, anything like that, please reach out to me offline. We're going to keep this pretty brief today, and just kind of talk about I think the experiences and the background and things, like I said, that have helped me be well prepared. And then you can take that and run with that as much as you want or don't want to. So, how to build a creative life without burning out. First is define what that even means to you. As I said in one of the other YouTube lives I did recently, one of the other presentations. And this one's going to be a little bit different because I had no notes for this one, unless I'm doing it in the studio, which is whenever I do live painting or live sculpture or clay or whatever. I usually at least have some bullet points somewhere to kind of keep me on track because I can use that. I got nothing today. I got nothing. I'm literally just talking to the camera. Um, so we'll see how that goes. I'm literally just talking to the camera without bullet points or anything about this. So this will be a little bit different, and you'll get to see just how scattered my brain can really be if I don't have notes. So building a creative life, one of the first things I did when, a little bit of background here, I spent decades in work, in not necessarily 100% creative work. And first you've got to, as I was saying before, because I jump all over the place, you kind of have to define what creative even means to you and what you're looking for from a creative life. Because creativity is a term that we use and we don't kind of baseline what that means to us. People will say, "Oh, I'm not creative." I actually had a lady do this to me at the last event. I was selling pottery and painting and stuff, and "Oh, this is so cool and it's so beautiful, and I'm just not creative at all." And immediately, like, that's the best way to get me to go, "Girl, yeah, you are." Everybody is, because it's the very nature of human beings. Like, that's what we are. And so immediately I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you are. Maybe you just haven't found your niche, found your thing, slowed down, lack confidence. Our school system is pretty much set up to beat the creativity out of you. And then you go into work. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I did some writing on that." Um, and she's like, "Oh no, just not creative." And then she starts showing me. I could have cracked up. I did crack up a little bit. I am now. She starts showing me these gorgeous, gorgeous earrings that she made by hand herself out of just some leftover beads some friend had laying around, and some wire, and they're freaking gorgeous. Like, I'd pay money for these things. I mean, I probably wouldn't because I basically wear the exact same earrings all the time, so I don't have to deal with it. But they're beautiful. So, if she's even defining creativity by making something unique with your hands and your brain, which is often how people are defining it, dog, you're creative. Like, she was. So she just wasn't talking about the specific creative thing that we were looking at in that moment, which was, the pottery and the paintings that I was selling, which are just one example of creativity. Creativity can be starting a new business. You can find creativity in so many things. So one is kind of define what that is and what it means to you. Um, and then part of building a life around it is the maybe not so creative parts. And I think that's where I got serendipitously very lucky in that my background is like my background. I started theater in high school. And when I started theater in high school, what I started doing was stage management. So that's the coordination. That's really making sure that absolutely everything for a theatrical production is ready to go on time for the audience in the correct way every single night, and then calling the show and making sure it goes off exactly as it is supposed to every single night. And I was doing that in high school. And so that was really good for my brain at a really young age to have to like super organize and coordinate in a really unique way for a 17-year-old. Um, and so if you can get involved in things like that, if you've never had to do anything like that, if you have kids, I would say get them involved in the performing arts, and not just the on stage side of things. I mean, that is great. Like I have whole other things. I did improv and was in an improv troupe, and that is all great for other reasons. Also, I just can't even emphasize enough. But the backstage stuff, the real coordination, organization, making sure things get done on time because there's no negotiation. And that was one of the big next steps was I went from stage managing to the very, very, again, serendipitously, the very first thing I ever worked on as an instructional designer. I was brand new to it, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to work with this group to design." I didn't even really know what instructional design was. I was working for the state of West Virginia to design a brand new class on project and program management. Yo. And so I'm working with all these PMP certified uh, project and program managers developing a course, a week long course on project and program management. And one, I had oh, this is just a lot like stage management, only frankly not as strict because you can actually negotiate due dates for project management. And man, you can't do that in theater because your date is your date. Like you got 500 tickets sold, you've got people showing up. There's no negotiating that date. There is no pushing it back. That is just what it is. And your budget is abysmal. So project and program management was really cool background. It gave some new structures. I got to see people not practice what they were preaching in that case as well. So I got to see some um, people teaching program and project management, or at least providing me the information to put together a course on it and then to teach it, who actually weren't very good at what they were certified in. And there's nothing there's a great way to learn. So kind of serendipitously, I tell you all of that because serendipitously I had this background, while yes, super creative and in the arts, I'm like always involved in theater and loved to paint, and then got involved with clay as an undergrad in college and all of that stuff. So always had that creative side, but very luckily got involved in this very technical, organized side of things as well, really quite young. Like I said, 17 for the stage management. Like I started that in high school. And then did that through undergrad and was a really good stage manager. and then later, or project management, and then have done a great deal of project management myself professionally, of even managing, multi-million dollar federal contracts and things like that. I happen to have, again, very serendipitously had a background that let my brain learn all of these organizational techniques that I might not otherwise have, and that are super important to making sure that you don't burn out. Because I think that that's one of the ways a lot of artists, a lot of creatives burn out, is because you just throw yourself into it, and you throw yourself into it without that business and systems background that you really need in the background. And you need some realism about how long things are going to take. It's not days, it's months. It's not months, it's years. Things are going to take longer to take off, unless something really cool happens and some influencer picks up your stuff and is like, "Oh, it's amazing," or something like that. It Things are just going to take longer, and you need to also understand some basics of, unless you're hiring someone for these things, and you probably don't want to do that unless you're independently wealthy early on. Some basic understanding of marketing, of project management, and those kind of things. And so all of that, I think, really has benefited me, because that just happened to be my background. That happens to be what I have done for the last several decades. Was a lot of project and program management, and then a lot of marketing along with those, getting out newsletters, getting out various images to go along with whatever we were doing, marketing theatrical productions, so all of those kind of things. But I think that that's, if if you want to build a creative life and go into it, those are things that you want to have some knowledge of, and then you want to be aware of, am I going to do those things myself? Do I have the capacity to do that? And be honest about your capacity. Or is this something I need someone else to do for me? Um, and be really thoughtful about that, and maybe even experiment with that. I would even recommend maybe a little experimentation with that, to see where your capacity really lies, if you can create and maintain the business side of it and the marketing side of it. I personally, and some people would say I'm a control freak, some might. uh, I personally, I like doing all of it myself. Again, I also have the experience of doing it all myself. So there's that. I have also, tried to work with professional entities. One of my first experiences was working with a professional entity who will go unnamed at this point, but who was a publisher, editor, and I worked with to do my publishing, marketing, editing on my first 3 books. And it was an abysmal experience. It was an awful, awful, awful experience, and it slowed down the book publication. They introduced more errors than they fixed in the books. I actually had to republish book 1 because I trusted them too much. And when I opened it up to do a live reading, there were so many mistakes in it. I was like, well, what am I even looking at here? This isn't what I wrote. So I had to go through it with a fine tooth cursor, and basically rewrite it, and then republish it, and then couldn't trust anything that they sent from that point forward, and they were just introducing error after error after error after error into my work. And then the publishing timelines were really slow. The marketing materials were just disconnected from the work because they just couldn't understand it. Um, and I found it to be a really miserable process to work with someone else and contract out my ecosystem. And so I ended that relationship and pulled it back all in-house to just me, and intend for it to just be me for now, until perhaps one day I will grow to the extent that I need other folks. But with modern technology, there's a large extent of it, depending again, and I think it depends vastly on your capacity, what else you have going on in your life. I do not have kids, so there's that. I have a bunch of dogs. And I did leave my full-time job to do this, so I am not balancing this with a full-time job that is sucking my capacity away. And I think that that's really important, to be very honest with yourself about what can I do, what can't I do, and not try to do too much. When I did kind of switch into this life, one of the first things I did was go, well, I'm not just going to wake up and take for granted I know what I'm going to do every day. Like I've had a business imposed, an employer imposed schedule, or a school imposed schedule for, don't look now, for my entire life, really. I mean, basically since I was 5 years old, right? Kindergarten, some sort of otherwise imposed schedule. And so immediately I was like, well, I'm not just going to count on getting up and knowing what I'm going to do. I need to, and anyone will tell you this, you need a business plan. You need to really sit down and write down, what am I trying to accomplish? But beyond that, from a day to day, I really went so far as to, I wrote out, painted out a schedule of okay, well, this is what my days look like. This is what I'm going to do, and how I'm going to lay out my days. And so, if you can't read that, it's 9 a.m. is fitness, 10 to 12:30 is write, 1:30 to 4:30 is pottery, 5:30 to 7:30 is work on canvas. That's Mondays. Tuesdays, 9 o'clock is fitness, 10 to 12:30 is marketing, communications, and web development. 1:30 to 4:30 is business meetings, planning, going to town, or creation, whichever of those is needed. And then 5:30 to 7:30 is reading or learning about something new, or what's going on, or something within my field, something within what I'm doing. And then uh, Monday's schedule repeats, Thursday, Tuesday's schedule repeats, essentially. Friday, Monday, Wednesday schedules repeats, and then Saturday and Sunday I kind of left open. That's also because that's when a lot of fairs, that's when most fairs and festivals and things that I would be like out doing stuff. And then I put down some things that should always happen. And so that was really early. Like that was right when I left my job, my full time, I would say 9 to 5, but it was by no means 9 to 5. It was more of like a 8 to 6, sometimes 9, sometimes not. You know how it goes. Um, but that helped a lot because it's something that I could just put behind the coffee maker, like hang behind the coffee maker. And so in the morning, it was like, okay, what day is it? All right, this is my day. And it wasn't that there was no flexibility, but in trying to schedule this new life, it gave me a self-imposed work schedule, and I found it very, very useful. I've probably follow it. That was months ago at this point. I probably follow it little less now because I've figured out my own rhythms, but it was necessary there at the beginning. And if I ever have doubts, it's something I can return to if I'm like, oh, because there are definitely hard days where you're like, oh God, okay, what am I supposed to do? Well, you can return to that, and that can help. So I found that really useful. Um, and then I'm a compulsive list maker, man. This I couldn't find a piece of paper, but I did find an old manila folder, and so I have a list written on an old manila folder, and it's separated up by, the top is some marketing stuff I need to do for the Hollow Places books. With a little bit down here, book 3, I'm working on some stuff I need to do for book 3. This is class stuff that needs to be done. And then down here is some pottery stuff. And then I've got a couple of reminders in the corner. And then I have that to add to this list and then this was notes that I was making for one of the Substacks that I wrote. Yeah, you can see. I'm just constantly always have a piece of paper and a pen with you, and don't ever, 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 ever rely on yourself to remember anything, because this is my new list for today. So this is actually, so I have all of this, but the new list for today is I need to work on some curriculum structures within the ecosystem. Um, at a midpoint meeting, select a new start point for a new curriculum that I'm adding, sign up for an event, and then it says see folder, and that's directing me over to this because I didn't want to rewrite all of this stuff and it was already organized. But yeah, so checklist, I think write things down. If you've never learned about project management, if I said project management and PMP and you were like, what the heck she talking about? What's she talking about? That might be something to learn about. And I would be happy to talk to you. I would be happy to. Um, I'm not a huge believer in like certification. Well, I'm just not because that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, but learn some of the steps of project management, like what it means to initiate a project, and some of the forms and structures that go along with that. And then what it means to kick off a project, and then what it means to actually nurture one through the course of its life. And when you talk about scope, schedule, and cost or budget, what are we talking about, and what does it mean to watch those things? I think scope creep is huge. So learn a little bit about what we're talking about when we say scope creep, and how to address that and how to watch out for that. I think communication, and learning some about professional communication, and non-emotional communication, because that was really helpful. I just said I had a really poor experience with the only, because they're the first and last for now, because whoo, burn me. But the first publishing and editorial team that I worked with. And one of the keys to ending that effectively, to maintaining it professionally and then ending it effectively and getting what I need from it and making sure that it ends well, is that non-emotional professional communication, and knowing how to do that, and editing your work before it goes out, like reading it and going, just what needs to be in this email. Yeah, I want to say those things, and I want to remind them of all the ways that they've up. Um, and I want to get this dig in, and I want to say blah blah blah. But do I need to? It's going to give me that dopamine burst right now, but is it helpful? Or does it just give them something to argue back on? And so you really do like being able to read your communications, doing communications in email, but rather on the phone. I know we like to talk to people, but people will take advantage of that. And so, responding, if you do talk on the phone, then replying to that with a summary, a concise but effective summary of these are the things that we talked about. Here are the things we agreed to. And here are the timelines. Do you see any issues with that? Do you have any additions or subtractions to this? But maintaining a cordial tone throughout. That's really helpful, particularly should the relationship go into a negative place. Um, because it just does maintain your professionalism, particularly should you have to get a third party involved. You also have all of that documentation. That's getting a little deeper in this than I really meant to. But all of those things were just things I kind of, again, serendipitously knew because I'd worked in state and federal government. I'd worked in progressive discipline. I'd actually taught on that. I'd worked with attorneys very closely on multiple subjects, and so very, very, just kind of lucky that I knew to do these things because of the background that I had, which is why I'm sharing, because I don't know. I don't know the background of a lot of creatives and people who might be trying to build this life, and these are just little things that can make life a lot easier. And again, this is kind of spotty over here, over there, over here, over there, because again, I didn't write any notes for this. But if you would like to discuss at all, if you want kind of an outline, if you're thinking about, particularly if you're thinking about self-publishing or working with a publisher or something like that, I would be happy to talk to you kind of what kind of communication you want to get up front and what kind of information you should be getting from those individuals. Um, and what that communication should even look like if they are professionals, um, as well as what your professional communication might look like. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. www.serendipitysellers.com is my website, and all my contact info is on there. Um, but yeah, I think that those are the big things. But if you have no background in project or program management, I think some study in that would be very beneficial, and not just study, but real applicable, like real application, like really learning how to do the work and what would be useful to you in whatever it is that you're trying to implement in your life. um, Professional communication, I think, communications, negotiation skills, that's really good. Improv, I'll say it, improv is great. I think theater in general, stage management is fantastic. Improvisation, you'll use it in places that you would never, well, maybe you would imagine, but places you might not ever imagine. So if you can get some experience with that, it's terrifying, which is what makes it one of many things that makes it amazing. Might not have been the things you expected to hear here. Maybe the project management was, maybe the communications and negotiations, but stage management and improv might not have been what you expected to hear. I think those, and then write it down. Don't go places without a notebook and a pen. If you're into the phone and the recording stuff that way, I guess that's great too. I guess I'm the youngest you can be and be Gen X, and the oldest you can be and be a millennial. I'm that year where I'm nothing. I am nothing. So I still Like, I tried to do the phone thing, but by the time I get to where I need to record the thing, I have lost the thought because ADHD. So bam, pen and paper. I would just as soon do that. So that would be another big thing. And then, yeah, my last thing is if you have questions, concerns, if you want something that's more specific to your situation, if you really want to know, okay, I'm looking at the project management handbook here, and there is like a handbook. That's a lot of crap. What do I actually need to know? I would be happy to talk to you. Hello at serendipitysellers.com, or just go to www.serendipitysellers.com. And you too can build a creative life without, and that's the key, without burning out. And because it is super easy to try to do it all at once, try to do too much, and certainly on the business side of things, if you're a creative, burn yourself out. But it is possible to do it all and not burn yourself out and actually have a really good time with it. So hopefully this was helpful. And I would love to continue the conversation with you, but hope you have a wonderful day. It is Monday morning here, and have a great week. I'll see you again at the studio above the clouds.